Hey everybody, it's Meredith Miller with Inner Integration. Today, I want to talk to you about what happens when you leave the abuser before they're done with you, before the discard, right? So the other day I was talking to one of my clients and she said, she ended up leaving this guy before he discarded her. And she said, there's a lot of information out there about the discard and how painful it is and it's brutal and how to deal with that and how to get over that. But she said there's actually really little out there about how to find the strength within yourself to get out before they discard you, before they leave you. So I want to talk about that today because it's really, really important. And I'm going to share with you these text messages, which are from my personal life. This happened to me 3 weeks ago. And I want to show you how fast it escalates when you take away that narcissistic supply. I'm going to show you the subtle manipulation, and then I'm going to show you how this person totally revealed himself and how amazing it was that I trusted my intuition and that I put my foot down right when I sensed that manipulation and I didn't let it go any farther. Because the me in the past, like 2 years ago, maybe even a year ago, I might have stayed longer. I might have let him come visit me. I might have let things get worse. And thankfully, I left before it got to that point. So I'm going to start right here. So the little bit of background is this is a person, we had a long distance connection for like about 7 weeks or so. I had gone to see him. We'd spent a little over a week together. A lot of wonderful things happened, including this massive transformation that I was able to make because he opened the door. Now, that's my transformation that I made. I did the work, not him. I fully recognize that. But I also recognize that he opened that door for me. And that's why I'm able to leave it this time with gratitude. And this is the first time I'm leaving with gratitude and not resentments. I'm going to talk more about that later. So the deal was he had bought a plane ticket and he was going to come visit me here in Mexico where I live. And his trip was like maybe 3 weeks out, 2 or 3 weeks out at this point. And he started playing this takeaway game for like about a week before. I noticed like he just wasn't really there. Something felt odd. Now the me in the past, the codependent me, would have been like, trying to like beg him for love or beg him, to like connect with me or to see what's going on or whatever. But the me now, it's like you just let go. You just step back. When someone plays that takeaway game where they're contacting you, and then they're like not there and they're giving you the runaround. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to call you back and, any minute. And then it's like hours later. And then they're like, oh yeah, I started watching this stupid movie with my friend. Like that literally happened. And I was like, okay. But I stepped back. And every time he did that, I stepped back. And I was starting to feel like something's not really right. But he had this plane ticket to come visit. So I was feeling this dilemma. So here we are. And he's like, I want to be in Mexico. And I'm like, really? Because it doesn't seem like it. And he says, I want you to show me your place. Why do you say that? I said, because you're distant emotionally. And he said, you the same. That's why I'm asking all the time. He wasn't asking all the time, but he was asking in a way that I sensed he was probing to try to elicit a negative reaction from me. If you saw that video I did like 3 weeks or so ago about don't give your power to the narcissist, like giving them that negative emotional supply when they're looking for it, it's so important. And I wasn't doing that even like about a week before this happened, when he told me that he kissed this woman or this woman kissed him and that's all that happened, whatever. While he was telling me, I was going like this. And he was like, I hate when you do this. I'm like, why? I'm listening to you. He's like, it's like you don't care. And I had this thing in my stomach and it told me he wanted to get a reaction from me. He wanted me to be upset and I wasn't. I didn't give him that. I wasn't trying to be attached to that or control that or upset about that in any way. It was just sort of like this wake-up call. So anyhow, he's saying here, and I said, that's my response to your behavior, meaning I'm taking a step back because I'm noticing he's not really there. So he says to this, oh, right? That's his only response. Oh. And then an hour later, he says, good night, Meredith, kiss. I'm going to have to translate these for you because most of these are going to be in Spanish now. If you don't believe me, just look them up on Google Translate. So you know how the game goes with the narcissist. It's like as soon as you're going to go to bed or it's time to go to bed, that's when they love to provoke you because then you become sleep deprived. Like you can't sleep thinking about it and all this, energy is going to that. And then when you're sleep deprived, you're delirious the next day. You're not clear. You're more confused. You're in that brain fog. You're not functioning well. You might go along with things and go with that flow because like you just don't have the energy to stand up. So he starts in, don't think negatively. Just flow without so much attachment and control. Right. But I wasn't attached and I wasn't controlling. And I think that's what was bothering him so much. But so right here, he's gaslighting me. And you know how the spiritual kind of narcissists are, where like, they're like, oh, don't think about anything negative and don't say anything negative. Like as soon as you start noticing there's a problem and an issue and you just start speaking up about it and they're like, you're just too negative. You just got to think positive. And he's saying, just flow with positive energy to see what happens between us. Now, to a certain degree, that's true. When you're first meeting someone, you just gotta kind of flow and see what it's gonna be. You can't like just define it immediately, right? I get that. But at the same time, that's how spiritual abuse works, is like they use this tenet that's true, and then they abuse you by using that tenet. So what he's telling me here, the translation here is like, you know, don't challenge anything, don't speak up about anything, just shut up and just go along with it, and we'll just see what happens, because this person just saw me as someone passing through his life, you know. And so he says, and that's why I'm going to see you and not Mexico. Think about that. And all of a sudden, again, my stomach dropped and my intuition said, oh shit, like he's just coming to see Mexico. He doesn't care that it's me. It could be anybody who's opening the door or giving him a place to stay. It's not about me at all. And that was kind of a wake-up call, because you know how sometimes the abusers will actually tell you what they're doing. It's like it slips out, or they tell you like it's not like this, but actually it's like that reverse sort of projection. It is like that. So I told him, you know, you're really good at flipping things around, because that's what he's doing here is like, I'm like, well, this is, you know, your behavior, and then he's flipping it around, and then now he's attacking me and trying to put me on the defensive as if it was my fault. And so he says, in flipping things around, and I thought he was questioning what that meant, and maybe I used the wrong word in Spanish, and so I said it in English. And he says, I believe that you have a problem with mood. You have a mood problem, seriously. And I said, wow, bye. Because at this point, I'm not engaging anymore in this conversation. This is a complete waste of time and energy. And now this person is trying to tell me that I have like some sort of mood disorder because I'm challenging the fact that he's playing manipulation with me. Now, it was so subtle, right? It was so subtle, but my intuition told me something wasn't right. And that's why I started stepping up like that. And then, you know, I'm out by this point. I'm not reading these anymore. But he says, I think about you all the time, but I don't want to miss you all day long, because these days I need to save energy. And you know it's hard for me to create connections, attachments, ties with people. So here's the thing, right? So when I went and I made that massive transformation, you know, he had no problem talking about the issues that I have. I have no problem talking about the issues I have. You know, I'm able to be vulnerable in that way. I'm able to be humble in that way, and that I can see my shit and I will change that shit. You know, and so he ended up admitting at that time, a little over a month before this happened, that he had a transformation to make himself, and it had to do with this, the fact that he has an attachment disorder. He has a problem. He didn't admit that, but he admitted he has a problem creating healthy emotional attachments with people. But now the game's different. Now he says, sorry for that. And that just sounds so dismissive, you know, but that's me. And so now he's telling me I'm not going to change, right? Accept me for how I am. That's how it is. I'm unable to create any sort of healthy attachment. So he says, and I love you, Meredith. Now, this word te quiero is different than te amo. There's two ways of saying I love you in Spanish. This is not as serious. Te amo is much more serious, much more feelings. This is the kind of how you love your friends and your family and stuff. And he's never said this directly to me. So it's so interesting that like right on the heels of this, he says that, and he's like, you know, I love you, Meredith, and I admire you as a person, seriously. When you arrived, I felt your impressiveness as a woman, and it was really good to feel that. And I'm thinking, this is bullshit. Like, this is just idealization. This is empty. It's superficial. It's just to suck you back in, right? And then he flips it, because you know how it goes. It flips, flops. It goes idealization, devaluation, idealization, devaluation. That intermittent reinforcement is a key part of the Stockholm Syndrome. Abusers know this. Even if it's not a conscious thing, they know they got to be nice to you, then they got to be mean. They got to be nice, they got to be mean. That's what keeps you stuck, right? That's exactly how it works. So then he switches to, but sometimes you think too much and you create alternative realities. So now he's gaslighting hardcore. Now he's telling me I'm just imagining all this. I'm creating an alternative reality. And he's preying upon the fact that like a day or two before I left for Peru, this little manipulation thing happened. And I couldn't at the time say that was for sure manipulation because it wasn't a pattern yet. It happened one time. I gave him a chance. He played that takeaway game where it was contact, 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 and then all of a sudden disappear. And then the next day, he's pretending like it's no big deal. He started the whole conversation putting me on defense. Like as soon as we opened up the video, he says, "Why are you wearing so much makeup?" And I wasn't. I'm wearing like exactly the kind of makeup I'm wearing right now, which for me is just a minimal amount of makeup that I wear to work usually. Now, if you'd seen my videos months ago, you've seen I have sometimes worn a lot more makeup, right? So I knew right off the bat he was trying to put me on the defensive, change the subject. He finally admitted that, if he doesn't reach out to me, for a period of time or doesn't answer my message for a period of time, then I'll miss him. And I said, that's manipulation. And he looked around like to see if anybody heard that. And I said, okay, let me give him the benefit of the doubt because maybe that was just emotional immaturity. Maybe he didn't really realize that that's manipulation. Maybe that opened his eyes and it's not going to happen again. And I was freaking out because I was still back in those days, like freaking out on the fear and the panic. And I was projecting all this stuff from the past. But at the same time, I was sensing that something wasn't right. I just didn't have proof yet. So now he's trying to gaslight me based on that and say that I'm creating alternative realities, that it's not happening as I'm imagining it. And then he says, again, I love you, Meredith, and I'm not okay when you suffer in vain, right? He's not okay because I'm suffering in vain. Now, first of all, I wasn't even suffering, right? He's making a massive assumption there. And then he says, doesn't it mean anything that I'm going to go see you? And I was like, well, there that is again. That's a total manipulation. Again, it's not about me. He just wanted to come to Mexico. So, oh no, I got it out of order. I'm so sorry. Let me fix this. I'm missing a slide. I'll be right back. Right. So that's in the morning. Doesn't it mean anything? I'm going to go see you. I didn't answer. He says, hello. I said, hello. He says, are you still upset? In reality, I haven't stopped. Today I had this and that, and tomorrow I have this and that. And he's explaining his work and why he's so busy. And I'm like, that's so interesting because I didn't say anything about that. So it's so very clearly how they reveal themselves through the words they say. He's revealing the fact that he's playing upon that he's making himself unavailable to manipulate me, and he's justifying, he just hasn't stopped or whatever. But, just a few nights ago, he was watching the movie with his friend and all that kind of stuff. So I said, I'm not upset. I just don't have energy for your games like your messages last night. Now, looking back, I probably should have changed this word games to manipulation. I probably should have just directly said the word, but that's how it came out. So then he flips it around again and he says, I don't either have energy to enter into dramas. So now he's implying that I'm creating the drama, right? Because I said something's going on and he's trying to flip it around and flip it around and flip it around. This is like the third time he's flipped it around in this time period that I've showed you. I'm done at this point. I'm done. I've seen enough. This person is just going to flip it around, going to take no self-responsibility. Very clear manipulation. Again, it's still kind of subtle, right? And in the past, I would have given that the benefit of the doubt. Sorry, now I got to backtrack to that other one because it's out of order. Okay, so that was at night, 10:14 p.m., whatever. I didn't respond anymore to that. So the next night, almost 24 hours later, he's like, hello. That, by the way, this whole like hello thing in English, it's just hey. The most common form of hoovering is hey, right? Just they're testing the water. So he comes up and he's like, hey, I want to be on good terms with you now. And that's exactly what the narcissist wants. Like first they want to provoke you, and then they want to like rescue you and comfort you for the exact thing that they caused. You know, they want to be on good terms with you at that point because they want the supply. Now it's been like 2 days since we've really had any kind of real contact, and it's been like more than a week that I've really been there giving him any sort of supply. And so now he's like, I want to be on good terms with you, or don't you want me to go anymore? Meaning to come visit me. Mamacita. So now he's using like baby, honey, you know, that sort of thing to like suck me in. Send me signals of love emoji. I'm sending you from here. I mean, what does this stuff even mean? Mountains, railroad, you know, house, nothing. It's emptiness. You know, it's just trying to suck me back. And while these messages were coming in, I was on the phone with my friend who was just going through a very similar situation with her person, except she had noticed the subtle manipulation. She called it out. But her guy was like, I'm so sorry, forgive me. I didn't mean to hurt you. Now, there is that kind. And then sometimes there's the kind that starts off like that and then gets nasty when they realize like you're done. And I'm going to show you how nasty this gets. So talking on the phone to my friend, we were talking about how this is the first time both of us are leaving with gratitude and not resentments because we didn't let these guys get in as deep. We had better boundaries. We recognized the subtle manipulation. We ended it immediately. And I was just thinking of the words that I needed to say to him to end this, you know, and I know no explanations. Don't go into anything. Certainly don't get on the phone and like get in any conversation. Like I knew that was just going to turn ugly. I just wanted to keep it on text, keep it simple. I said, I don't want you to come anymore. This isn't what I want. I'm grateful to you for the experiences that we have shared. I wish you all the best. Kiss. Okay, that was just simple. Expressed my gratitude. I expressed this isn't what I want. I told him not to come. He says, wow, the next morning. Okay, but I have my ticket. So anyhow, recommend me a place to stay or visit. Thanks. And I didn't answer that because one, I'm not a tour guide, and two, I'm not trying to get involved in any kind of conversation with this guy. I know that's just a hook to get me talking about us, for him to come see me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm really sorry that he had this plane ticket, but he should have thought about that before he decided to treat me with disrespect, before he decided to manipulate me and expect me to go along with that. I'm not going to take the responsibility of the consequences of his actions. So I'm not answering him. Now, isn't this funny? Like how many phone calls over a 12-hour period? This is the guy who had no time for me, you know, nothing but excuses, and I'm just imagining it, and I'm controlling, and I'm attached. And now he can't stop blowing up my phone. Then he says, hello, because I didn't answer. And then he says, so then are we never going to talk anymore? Is that what you want? And I said, no, thank you. I need to save my energy. I probably didn't need to say that second sentence. I probably should have just stopped it with no, thank you. This was a little bit, you know, me returning his words back to him. And it was 100% true. I was not about to invest my energy in that. I nowadays have a zero tolerance policy for manipulation, for abuse. I have zero energy, time, and patience for that. So, you know, I used his words back. Whether it was a good idea or not, I don't know. But I said that. And his response the next morning was, by the way, I wake up, right, 25 unread messages. And it's like, ha 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 ha, because he knows I'm using his words, right? He says, okay, good luck with everything. I hope that you have a life full of relaxation and good vibes. But be careful about being unhappy, not for other people, but for your own mind. I'm only telling you that your mind betrays you in the worst way. Now, this is incredible. Like, not only is this all gaslighting, right here we have some projection. He's telling me that my mind is betraying me. Where my mind was very clear, this is manipulation. He was betraying me. He was manipulating me and trying to tell me that it wasn't happening and that it was in my mind. This is just a projection. Abusers love to project. I have only ever sent you good vibrations since I met you. I've only ever sent you good vibrations, he says. But now I understand why you move the way you move. Kiss, Meredith. Take care of yourself. 3 hours later, I didn't respond. So he's not done yet. He's about to go real low. He says, I always thought Why, to this woman, do all these bad and negative things happen? Now, he knew a little bit about my past. He knew that I had been in many relationships with abusive people. He knew that my mother is that way. He knew that my grandfathers were that way. He knew what happened to me in Peru because he asked me why I didn't want to go back there and why, he was trying to get me to go there. I told him about my former business partner, the other person that was working with us, the sociopath, the other narcissists that were around there, a lot of trauma that took place that I hadn't wanted to go back there. So now he's taking my history and using it against me, and now he's implying that I deserved it. Why do such bad things happen to you? Now I understand why, he says. You don't give a crap that I bought my ticket to see you, and knowing that I don't have a lot of money for this trip, because supposedly we were going to relax in your town, and I was going to spend a lot. This doesn't even make sense. He was going to spend a lot. So I offered to help with his plane ticket. And the deal was he was actually going to go visit one of his friends in another Latin American country, either on his way here or on the way back. And he would extend, the trip to come see me. I offered to give him some money. At first he said yes. Then he said no. Just in case things don't work out with us, he doesn't want me going around telling people what a bad person he is. Number two, while I was with him during that time that I was in Peru, his ex, who is the mother of his child, had some kind of issue with her plane tickets, and he sent her immediately $5,000. His plane ticket was $500, right? He had no problem sending her $5,000, but now he's trying to manipulate me by telling me what an awful thing it was to do and how I deserve all these bad things because I told him not to come because he had a plane ticket because I didn't want to put up with his manipulation. And then he says, but nothing matters to you how you hurt other people, how I hurt other people, right? Perhaps it's because you already found a new companion, which doesn't affect me, right? Because for a manipulative person, especially a narcissist, they think they're such the shit that they can't imagine that you would leave them, to be alone, that there must be someone else, right? There's no one else. And then, of course, he has to say, which doesn't affect me, but clearly it does. And he says, but yeah, you shit on me because I could have spent that money on another trip. Well, you coulda, woulda, shoulda thought about that before you manipulated me. And he says, I believe that now I understand why life has treated you so bad because many, many people here think that you're crazy, including those that you think are your friends and love you. They themselves told me, be careful with that crazy woman. Yesterday, someone that saw me with you said, with that woman, nothing happens. She's half crazy. And I defended you until that person made me understand why. Now, this is just low, low, low. So when you're leaving an abusive person, there's two things they tend to tell you. One is that you're crazy, because if you think that you're crazy, then you're going to doubt all of your perceptions of reality. You're going to doubt the fact that this person is abusing you. You're going to be afraid to tell other people. The second thing that they tell you, no one will believe you. And they're going to tell you that directly or indirectly. And what he's telling me here indirectly by trying to tell me all these people think that I'm crazy is that no one will believe me. Don't you dare tell anybody. He's kind of like a public person there. People know him. And I doubt most of the people realize who he is because he's quite covert. And, so basically what he's telling me is no one's going to believe you and try to make me think that I'm crazy. But I've seen this before. I know exactly what this is, and I know who I am. And I know that neither of my friends would have said this. I have two close friends that live in that area. Anybody else that I know there are just acquaintances and people that I knew connected with the former sociopath business partner, etc. It could be that it was one of those acquaintances who had heard the smear campaign from the former business partner and now heard his smear campaign and said things. But more than likely, this is all made up, just like everything else that he's making up to gaslight me into thinking that I'm the one with the problem. And he says here, and now that you do this, you're confirming that theory, which in reality is another projection, because all of this that he's saying to me, all of this nastiness and lowness, this is him confirming to me that I was right, that I recognized the manipulation, that I recognized he was a manipulator, and he's just revealing himself in these messages. He says here, in reality, instead of continuing to help people, you're doing them more damage. They are people that would follow any advice because they're lost. And for that reason, they follow your advice from someone who can't even take care of herself or deal with herself, right? So now he's gone so low. He's not only tried to tell me that I'm crazy and no one will believe me and everybody thinks I'm crazy, which is a total lie, but now he's trying to get me to doubt the very thing that I live for, like my sense of purpose, which is helping people, this work that I do, right? Now he's got to tell me, that I'm leading people astray, that I'm hurting people. He says here, you should look for help before you continue helping people, because you can cause them more confusion. What this is right here, this is like when the devil tries to tempt you to let go of your purpose, tries to tempt you to stop helping and making a difference in the world. And the reality is that because I ended this before he actually showed me his horns, now he has to say this stuff. Don't wait for the devil to show you his or her horns before you end that, because by then it's too late. If I had let this guy come visit me, if I had let him in any deeper, I eventually would have seen those horns and I would have been hurt because I would have opened myself up too much like that. So I'm so grateful that I ended it and that I disattached my heart and my heartstrings from him before it got to this level. And then he says this, oh wait, and I'm telling you this with the best vibes of the world and hoping that you realize what you're doing. Because crazy people stop being crazy when they realize that they're crazy. Like, how many times has he told me that I'm crazy now? And your mind is so powerful that you're always going to find an exit for this. But I tell you again, you need to redeem yourself before something. You trust too much in yourself. You trust too much yourself, right? When you've been through abuse, the thing that's most damaged is your sense of self-trust. Like, you lose your trust in yourself, in others, in the universe, right? It's a whole process of rebuilding that trust. I have rebuilt that trust considerably compared to where I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. That's the last thing an abusive person wants you to have, is self-confidence and self-trust. Because if you trust yourself and you trust your reality, you're going to call this shit out for what it is, and you're not going to put up with it, and they're not going to be able to get what they want from you. So he has to tell me that I'm trusting too much of myself. And you should unattach yourself from all of your toxic thoughts. I only have sent you good vibes. How many times did he already say that, right? Because it's like he has to convince himself of that maybe, or maybe he's trying to convince me. And look how you react. You left me planted. You left me stranded. I left him stranded. But it's okay, he says. What goes around comes around. La vida da vueltas is like life goes around. What goes around comes around. So now he's implying that I'm going to get some kind of negative karma because of the way that I'm hurting him. And he says, and I only continue wishing you the best. Right? Like, I'm some kind of fool. Like, I'm going to read all this shit and think that he's wishing me the best. I mean, wow, right? Wow. Oh, and again, and I'm sending you the best vibrations. Because if I'm saying it, it must be true. Oh, but you need to look for psychological help. Really, you need it. I felt it from the first day that I met you in person. But wait a second, isn't that funny? Because like 2 days ago when he was like, and I felt your impressiveness as a woman that first day I met you, and it was so good to feel that. Both of those are total bullshit. One was meant to suck me in, and this one was meant to devalue me. Oh, and my friends in Cusco told me the same. Just from looking at you. Right. Maybe his friends thought I was crazy hanging out with him. Goodbye. Have a great Sunday. Right? So at this point, I wake up, I read this stuff. I'm like, wow, blocked him immediately. Didn't respond to this at all. Do not respond to this. If you respond in any way, shape, or form to defend yourself, to tell him that he's wrong, anything, I'm sorry about the planes, anything. They're going to use that as an excuse to suck you back in, to abuse you more. I'd seen enough. I blocked him all over the place. He has no way of getting in. That's it. Assertion, I heard Brendan Burchard say this in one of his videos, assertion is owning your reality. And that's what I did right here. I owned my reality. I recognize this as gaslighting. I recognize this as manipulation. I recognize that doesn't describe me at all. I know myself. I didn't need to stand up and be like, well, no, it's like this and you're this and that. That doesn't necessarily have to be the only way that you look assertive, you know. Assertion is owning your reality. It's being able to stand centered and grounded in yourself and know that all of that is a lie. And you know that they're always going to say this. You're just going to have to be willing when you're ending it with a manipulator, an abuser, a narcissist, whatever you want to call them. You're going to have to accept the fact that they are going to say stuff like that. You're going to have to accept the fact that they're going to have their own story in which they're the victim and you're this awful person, and they're going to try to tell you all this stuff, and you have to be willing to walk away. Don't give it any time. Don't give it any energy. Don't give it any reaction or any response, because it's just going to suck you back in. It's just going to keep you in that. You know, don't wait for it to get bad before you get out. As soon as you see that sign, right? Like you see one thing, like I told you at the beginning, I saw that one thing and I gave him a chance because it was a one-off, right? People fuck up. We all fuck up. I fuck up. I'm not going to just write somebody off because they made one mistake, right? Now it happens 2 times. Now it's a pattern. And then when you call it out and they flip it back, now you know for sure that person's not listening to you. Don't defend yourself. Don't waste your time and energy defending yourself because they're not listening to you. They don't care. They only want their reality. As soon as you have that confirmation the second time and you know in your intuition, even though it's subtle and you haven't seen any of this yet at the end, it's so subtle, listen to your intuition and end it ASAP. I mean immediately, the sooner the better. Because the longer you say, the more danger there is. The more danger it is that they get in deeper, that they hurt you more, that you do something that you regret. I was able to walk out of this with elegance. I was able to walk out with grace and with gratitude because I didn't respond to any of that, because I didn't do anything wrong. Now, he might go around telling people that I'm this awful person because, you know, I ended this when he had a plane ticket, and that's fine. I have to be willing to deal with the fact that he's going to do that. I also have to know that I made the right decision, because if I had let him come, it would have been much worse. And I've made that mistake in the past. Like weeks before I was going to get married back in 2001, I started noticing this stuff. I started telling my friends and some family members, and everybody was like, you need to cancel that wedding. Like, please don't marry that guy. But out of shame, I didn't. I was too ashamed to face the public, you know, whatever was going to happen by telling people that I'm not going to marry this guy. So I married him. Huge mistake. Huge mistake. It took me a long time to recover from that marriage, you know, and that was the mistake I made in the past. There will always be that thing, right? Just today I was talking to another client who needs to end it and just trying to come up with the words and have this difficult conversation, you know, and just like, well, this thing is coming up and that thing. I'm like, there's always going to be that thing, that plane ticket, that vacation, that marriage, somebody's surgery, somebody gets sick, some concert that you guys bought tickets to. Like, there's always going to be that thing. And if you just keep postponing it and postponing it, when are you going to draw the line? When are you going to get out? The sooner, the better. So that's the message that I have for you guys today. I appreciate that you went on this little journey here with me. I hope that was helpful for you. I'm pretty sure some of you have seen very similar things when you're trying to end it with a narcissist and just seeing how fast things escalate. Don't give in to that. Don't give in. Stand strong. Own your reality, and then go get a reality check from your best friends. That's what I did after this. I sent these messages, you know, to my friends who speak Spanish. I talked to my friends and cousin, you know, who speak English, and told them about what happened. And everybody was like, Ma, don't you believe that? Like, not for a minute. I'm like, I know, you know, but there is that fleeting moment where the person, you know, they say it with such conviction and confidence that like you start to doubt yourself again, you know. Don't doubt yourself. Trust your reality, and when in doubt, go get a reality check from people who actually love you and know you. I'm sending you a big hug.